You've probably seen this case all over the media. She's a 41-year-old single mother who says she was only trying to help her son, but authorities say she's guilty of a bizarre form of child abuse and that she fits the profile to a T.
Profiling people has proven through history to be a dangerous thing. We've had slavery, we've had the civil rights, and we've had Hitler. And now we have Munchausen.
Ellen Storck was accused of neglecting her 9-year-old son Aaron due to Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a rare psychological disorder where parents make their children ill in order to get attention from doctors. Throughout her trial earlier this year, Storck maintained that she was a caring mother, devoted to making sure her boy would not die from a severe breathing disorder. In February, the court ruled against Storck, finding her guilty of neglect and placing Aaron in a foster home. Today, Ellen Storck is fighting back for her son's custody and for her own credibility. We're going to talk to Ellen Storck and let you decide today. And it's all next right here on the Maury Show. Storck says that she hasn't always gotten a fair hearing in the media. We're going to try to give her a chance to tell her story in a few minutes. But I think maybe the best way to start with a story like this is to find out and understand exactly what is Munchausen syndrome by proxy. What makes women who, and by the way, it's usually women, although rarely it's men. 90% of these cases involve women. And they are so persuasive and very credible in their story and how they tell it, so that we can have all the information that we know to make up our minds. Dr. Patricia Farrell is here. She's an expert on this syndrome. What exactly is it, Doctor? What would, I mean, strange name to start with.
Strange name indeed. It has, although there's nothing amusing about Munchausen's, it really started with a very famous and, what should I say, teller of tall tales, who was a baron in...
Baron von Munchausen, right?
Who went to war in Russia, came back, and of course embellished upon the things that he did. And his stories were just so incredibly unbelievable.
So anything that carries his name...
Yes.
Carries this kind of tall tale atmosphere, this embellishment,
exactly,
this exaggeration
exactly.
of stories.
And for the purpose of making yourself look like a superhero or a special person, or, you know, somebody who really needs, their self-esteem needs a little bit of a lift. Okay.
Munchausen syndrome itself would apply to someone who purposely does harm to themselves,
exactly,
to get attention from hospitals,
yes,
from family, from friends, from everyone.
Yes. As a matter of fact, they've been known as, there's a number of names for Munchausen syndrome people. They're called hospital hobos. They're called doctor shoppers. And whenever they go into the hospital and a doctor sees multiple operations, they kind of call them zipper stomachs. And they say, well, maybe we've got somebody who was looking for an operation, and for sure, if you look for an operation, you look a little long enough, you can get an operation.
Munchausen syndrome by proxy, then, is when someone who has these feelings transfers these feelings,
yes,
to a child.
Exactly.
Most likely your own child.
Yes, usually under the age of 6.
So that, what do they do to this child?
Well, first of all, they manufacture symptoms of illness. Usually what they do is they will either choke the child in some way, they will feed the child some product that will make them sick.
So that he has symptoms of an illness.
Definitely has symptoms.
So that they probably would take that child to doctors?
Many doctors.
To hospitals?
Many hospitals.
Okay. And
that's the other thing. The idea is that they go to many different doctors so that nobody gets the full, complete story. Nobody really knows what's going on. And every health professional is fascinated because you've got a case of a kid who has an illness that is so rare you've probably never seen it As a matter of fact, I read recently that one of the kids in this case had an illness that the doctor had been in practice 30 years, had never seen it. It was so rare. And it came with a series of other rare disorders.
Okay. The characteristics, the profile, give us a profile of a person who would suffer from this disorder.
Generally, it is a woman who is either experiencing marital difficulties, separated from her husband, or a single mother, okay? She has some special knowledge of the medical field, can have been a nurse, a medical office assistant, a social worker, any number of people who have access, knowledge, feel comfortable around the medical profession, and certainly can make a very credible story. They read medical textbooks, they read whatever they have to read. And the other thing is they have such a winning way. You're looking at Oscar performances, only these are not
What you're
films.
saying is these are performances. These are acts.
Definitely.
Do they believe these things are happening?
That's really a question. And I believe, what is the reason these women do it? They do it really in the belief that somehow they're making sure that the child is being taken care of, but they do it more so to make sure that they are seen as the super mom. You've all heard of cases where nurses have gone out, been in the media, nurses have gone out and given certain medications to cause the patient to go into cardiac arrest. And who is the nurse who goes and makes the wonderful, saving of this person? It's that nurse.
Yes, it's that nurse who wants to harm things and then become the savior to save and rescue the child or rescue the person.
So what we have here is a mother who presents herself as totally devoted to that child. She gives up everything.
We've just heard about the unusual syndrome called Munchausen by proxy. Ellen Storck's 9-year-old son, Aaron, has been taken from her custody after the court ruled that she suffered from this syndrome. You deny that you suffer from Munchausen syndrome by proxy, right?
Yes, I deny that.
Had you ever heard of it?
I had never heard of it before the charge was made.
Never?
Never.
There was some testimony that one doctor said you did.
Yes, that was the doctor that accused me.
Yeah.
He did testify to that fact, but I had never heard of it before.
Why do you think they would even charge you with something like that?
I can't account for their motivations. I know that that very same doctor who Aaron was, when he was admitted into that hospital for that hospital stay, it was for observation for one night after dental surgery. And that very same doctor who was chief of the ICU also said that because Aaron had this very unusual breathing condition of apnea at 8 years old.
We can talk about this because this is crucial. You have claimed all along that Aaron suffered from what is called apnea. Now, apnea is a condition in which we all, believe it or not, when we sleep, stop breathing. However, this condition is you stop breathing so much and for so long that your life is threatened, correct?
That's how it was explained to me. Yes, that's correct.
And he suffered from it for a long time.
He had apnea as an infant from 6 weeks to 8 months and was followed during that time period, and it was identified in a hospital. It went away, and when he was 4.5 years old, he had appendicitis. While he was hospitalized for the appendicitis, under hospital supervision on monitors there, they discovered that he was once again having periods of apnea and the lowering of his heart rate into dangerous levels.
And so therefore you were always worried about that, weren't you?
I was worried about that after it was identified, not from the time that he was 8 months old.
No, but after the time of what, 4, did you say? When did he go in?
4.5.
4.5. From that time on, you had a monitor, didn't you?
I was sent home. He was sent home on the monitor at the age of 4.5. There was no choice in that. The pediatrician who was attending to him at the time contacted centers around the country that dealt in apnea and breathing disorders, and the recommendation was that he had to go home on an apnea monitor, and the limits were set on that monitor that if he stopped breathing for more than 15 seconds, it would start to alarm, or if his heart rate went dangerously low, and then I was told what to do.
Have you had any medical training?
Yes, I went to nursing school.
You went to nursing school. Also, so you kept your son Aaron basically in constant contact with you?
No.
No?
No. He was only, he had he had sleep apnea. So when he was asleep, he was hooked up to this monitor, 2 electrodes on his chest.
Whose bed did he sleep in?
He slept in his own till he was 4.5 years old.
After 4.5.
When he came home from the hospital on the monitor, he was sharing a room with his brother, which was at the other end of the house. And they told me I had to be within 10 seconds of the monitor at all times. So for him to sleep in that room, he couldn't. So I brought him into my room and put him in bed with me.
So he slept with you?
Yes, he did.
Until he was taken away from you?
Yes. We were working on getting him in his own room at that time.
Does that sound strange to you?
It was not a decision that I just made on my own. When he was 4.5, I thought it was going to be for just a short time. They thought it was trauma after the surgery. It continued. There were a lot of other circumstances that played into that, but there was also his pediatrician.
Your attorney is here. Am I right or wrong? This is John Chiarelli, right? John, am I right or wrong? Is that basically the factors in which the judge was driven to take the child away?
They looked for the elements of the profile, and they used their...
The profile we talked about, this Munchausen syndrome by proxy.
And the profile is extremely diverse, and I think the profile is used by health professionals to understand the types of people and the environments and the causes of this particular behavior. It's never been used in court to convict or to prove that somebody did a specific act. In this case, they took the elements of the profile and they said, well, we're satisfied that there are elements of the profile that are consistent if we believe this, and they chose to believe this rather than that because this was consistent with the profile. And then, since it is consistent with the profile, she must be guilty, so that she was found to have neglected this child, although there was no proof that there was actual harm done, nor imminent risk of harm. And if Dr. Farrell read the transcript, the psychiatrist who testified, who was promoting a book on this trendy subject, said that he couldn't say that there was any imminent risk of harm to Aaron, and the only harm that Aaron has suffered is the psychological harm of being removed from his family.
So this syndrome to you is kind of what, medical chic or something?
I think it's trendy. I think that child abuse is child abuse, and if somebody injects feces into an IV or gives a child drugs that the child's not supposed to have, that's child abuse. If somebody is caring for a child and doesn't cause any invasive procedures to be performed, goes to the same doctor over the course of years, relies on doctor's testimony, that's not child neglect or child abuse.
Although part of the profile Dr. Farrell talked about was you convince your own doctors.
Okay, and I'm really glad that you did mention neglect, because as you remember from the court transcript, there are 2 other children in the home. I know there's 3 children in the home. 2 other children in the home. One child, Joshua, who at the age of, I believe, what was it, how old, 18 months or something like that, he weighed 19 pounds. He was considered malnourished.
No, he was not. There is nothing in his medical records, that states that. That was said in the courtroom by Dr. Schreier, the psychiatrist who wrote this book, who, by the way, never met me or examined me till the day he flew in.
I tell you, Dr. Farrell, that they also suspected that Joshua had a seizure disorder, and as you know, that's a very common disorder to have in this profile.
A seizure disorder is also brought on
let me tell you something.
Apnea, which is caused by compression of the throat.
All right, but then Joshua went to a doctor that was assigned by the court, and that doctor said that he did, in fact, have a seizure disorder. And the psychiatrist who testified based his opinion on an assumption that Joshua did not have a seizure disorder, just as he did not have failure to thrive.
Let's find out what the doctor's trying to get at. What are you trying to get at?
What does he have now? What does he suffer from now?
What's the point about talking about another child?
Because usually in a home where you have Munchausen's, it's not just one child who suffers from it, okay?
Ellen Storck lost custody of her son when a judge ruled that she suffered from Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Dr. Patricia Farrell is a specialist in this rare syndrome. Lou Cherry is a social worker and Ellen Storck's former therapist. John Chiarelli is Ellen's attorney. Do you believe, Lou, that she suffers from this?
Absolutely not. Pat had said something about the profile. the person who fits that profile is a fine actor, or actress in this case. And I think as a professional, Pat would probably acknowledge that while it might be easy to act with infrequent contacts with someone, Ellen was in treatment with me for a period of time on a weekly basis.
What's a period of time?
A couple of years, different times in her life.
Why do I
have a
feel it's
question.
strange that a therapist is talking about his patient to the public? I don't get that.
I'm here to support Ellen because I don't believe that the diagnosis is
Does this
appropriate.
mean you can't be her therapist anymore?
I stopped treating her about a year and a half ago.
Okay. Yeah, doctor, you want to say?
I was going to say, how did you come to the conclusion that you didn't suffer from it? Since being a social worker, you're not qualified to do psychological testing.
Well, no one has tested Ellen psychologically, so I don't know how the diagnosis was made in the first place.
All right.
She has not been examined by a psychologist or a psychiatrist to be evaluated for this diagnosis. She's been given a diagnosis by airmail.
Except a psychiatrist who examined her on our behalf, who testified that he didn't find the syndrome.
And he is also not qualified to do psychological testing because he's a psychiatrist, and they are not trained in psychological
Nobody's
testing.
qualified.
Then the doctor who's writing this book should not write this book because he's not qualified to write this book.
A psychiatrist testified in this case that she had it.
We're not talking about a book. We're talking about a case.
Yes, and he goes around the country testifying in cases
We're talking about a
without meeting
psychiatrist
people.
who testified that she had this, that it was clear to him that he had it, and he had never spoken to her or any of the children.
Let me ask
And that's
Lou
off
Cherry
the issue that I just proposed to the social worker.
Let me ask Lou Cherry this. Do you believe that Aaron suffered from apnea?
Yes, I do. I do believe it. I spoke with Dr. Pelusi.
Why hasn't there been an instance of this since he's been out of her care?
I can respond to that. We had medical testimony during the course of the trial that from a physician, a highly respected, nationally known physician in childhood breathing disorders. She said that her current research is leading her to the conclusion that children such as Aaron, who had infant...
Dana, Courtney, and Josh are Ellen's 3 other children. They are still living with their mother. It's been a lot of publicity about this case, Dana. Has it been hard on you at school with your friends?
A little bit. Some people, like, make fun of me and stuff, but it hasn't been that bad.
I mean, what do they say?
I don't know. They just, like, say, oh, you were in the newspaper, all that stuff.
Josh, did you go to the doctor a lot when you were a kid? Were you little? Remember?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? No. How about you, Courtney?
I didn't go to the doctor much when I was little.
Right. Did you find it strange that Aaron had to sleep with your mother?
No.
No? When you were little, did you remember you sleeping with your mother?
I probably did a few times.
Yeah? No, I think a lot of kids do a few times. How you get scared at night. How can we... Is there any resolution to this, Doctor? Let's talk about Dr. Crow. Is it over? Do you think this case is over? It should be over?
No. I think that, unfortunately, something may have begun which will carry on to later life for this little boy, Aaron. And that is very disturbing to me and I think to anybody else.
Okay. What are you doing about this, Ellen and John, your attorney? I mean, are you